You already know what to do to grow your business, but the difference between those who succeed and those who fail isn't knowing what to do, is actually doing it. It's relentless, consistent execution. But most founders are likely you're bleeding execution every single week. You're wasting hours on things that don't matter. That's why I like to say that your number one enemy in business, not your competitors, not your motivation, not even your stress levels. The real enemy is buried within your own biology. And unless you reward it, it will quickly sabotage your business and your life. At the heart of every failure lies a gap, what I call the execution gap. It's the mismatch between what your conscious mind knows you should do and what your subconscious mind believes it is safe to do. So for instance, your logical brain says, I have to do outreach to grow my business. Or your emotional brain says, but what if they reject me? What if nobody cares? And emotion always beats logic. So instead of action, you get friction. And that friction can show up as procrastination, which is delaying the hard thing, or precastination, which is drowning in busy work just to avoid the hard thing. And the most dangerous part is that every time you avoid, you reinforce the loop. Your brain literally rewards itself for more avoidance. So it can start, for instance, by something like doing outreach or maybe sales calls. But if you don't close this gap, it spreads everywhere. You want to launch a product, but then you don't do it. You want to raise your prices, but you're scared you don't do it. You want to fire the wrong hire, and you don't do it. And avoidance compounds like debts, and debts always gets collected. Over time, it literally becomes your subconscious identity. You identify with someone who hesitates, who stalls, who knows but doesn't do. And that is self-betrayal at the deepest level. Knowledge without execution really is self-betrayal. I remember a client I had, a SaaS founder, doing about 7 figures, who knew exactly the features that would double his valuation. But for 9 months, I think he avoided the tough calls from investors and the uncomfortable conversation with his CTO. By the time he acted on that knowledge, the window of opportunity had closed at competitorship first. And that single avoidance didn't just cost him millions down the line, it rewrote how he saw himself. He started seeing himself as a failed founder, someone who didn't make the right decision at the right time. And that's the terrifying part, that this can happen to anyone whenever this execution gap shows up and it doesn't get closed fast enough. Procrastinating on doing a hard task really isn't just a weakness, it's supreme arrogance. Every time you delay the one thing that matters, you basically say, I can cheat reality, I can get away with not having to do what others have done before. I can avoid the risk and still win. But reality does not negotiate. Execution and result is the only currency it respects. So winners bleed on the hard thing today, and losers bargain with tomorrow. So in essence, at every crossroad, you either face the hard thing now or the hard thing destroys you later, like in the case of my client. Neuroscience now is pretty clear on how your brain's fear center, the amygdala, lights up when you face a task tied to uncertainty, risk, or identity. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical side of the brain, gets hijacked. So this is not about laziness. This is literally your biology tricking you into avoidance. Evolution gave you a brain that is coded and programmed to avoid a hard task. But there's good news. There's something called neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to rewire your default and lean on execution as your ultimate business edge. Now, most gurus will tell you that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you rise to the level of your systems. And that's true, but incomplete. Because the true power lies in having strong mental defaults. But if your mental defaults are broken, your systems will not work because you won't make them work. And for most founders, the mental default is avoidance because they haven't trained their mind yet. That's why productivity hacks, planners, and apps don't stick, because they need to change how they work at a fundamental level. Elite performers, elite founders don't have better apps or tools or templates than you. They have trained their brain for consistency. So they collapse with their defaults, which is a much higher execution floor than average. Think about it this way. Goals are like the spark. It is what you set in order to create a new direction. Systems are the lighter, but defaults are the fuel. Without fuel, without a mind that is consistently seeking to get the right things done, you won't get anywhere. This is why I always say that elite founders are not smarter or more talented than others. They have just learned how to make not executing more painful than actually just doing the work. And that is exactly what we train at Selfmastered. We don't give you productivity tips. I couldn't care less at what time you wake up or if you do cold showers or what is your biohacking routine. that doesn't matter. We give you the system that rewards your defaults so execution becomes inevitable. If you're tired of making energy, time, and opportunity, there's a link below. And let's talk. Every time you skip one hard thing, you vote for a weaker version of yourself. And those votes compound. So the bottleneck right now is not your team, it's not your market, it's not your funding. The bottleneck is you. The bottleneck is your ability to identify the highest leverage task and actually execute on it. And at every crossroads, you have a choice. Either you keep negotiating with the task and you delay it, and that creates the wrong type of neuroplasticity. You become better at avoiding, or you close the execution gap and become the founder you know you're meant to be. If you're ready for an identity shift, book your call below and let's rewire your mind at the absolute root. See you on the call.